Greetings everyone, and welcome back to M.I.I. Kicking off the year in 2025, the US national debt is now $36.1 trillion, and that is according to the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. Also, the Peter G. Peterson Foundation states that debt per citizen is now $105,970. The US Debt Clock.org states that there's now $36.2 trillion in US national debt. So there's a $138.8 billion difference between the two reporting sites. Also, the US Debt Clock.org states that debt per citizen is now $100,784, and debt per taxpayer is now $271,791. Breaking down the US national debt again. US individual and institution fund is owed over $15.4 trillion. The Social Security fund is owed over $6.5 trillion. The US Civil Service Retirement Fund is owed over $2.2 trillion. The US Military Retirement Fund is owed $771.8 billion. US oil exports. It's owed $588.1 billion. China and Hong Kong is owed $3.4 trillion from America. But how much money does China owe the United States? America owes Japan $2.3 trillion. But once again, how much money does Japan owe the United States? The UK. The UK is owed $514.6 billion from America. But the flip side of that is how much money does the United Kingdom owe the United States? Once again, just to save time and due to lack of data, I compiled Brazil and all the nations that the United States owes money to. And the United States owes the rest of the world $4.7 trillion. But also, how much money does the rest of the world owe the United States? Currently, the US national debt is $36.2 trillion and counting once again. But the US government owes US taxpayers and US corporations over $22.05 trillion and counting. Here at the top, what I'm explaining is that if US taxpayers and US corporations were to settle with the government the amount of debt that the government owes them, then the new US national debt level could be $14.2 trillion plus. Moving on to the middle, what you have to factor in though is the cost of the settlement package, our Domestic Debt Forgiveness Act. If this settlement package, our Domestic Debt Forgiveness Act between US taxpayers and US corporations and the federal government costs $7 trillion, for example, then you would have to do the $22.05 trillion owed to US taxpayers and US corporations minus the cost of the settlement package, which, for example, let's say it costs $7 trillion, then the new amount of debt owed to US taxpayers and US corporations that will be eligible for them to allow the US federal government to service and clear from its debt sheet would be $15.05 trillion. So here at the bottom, I do the current US national debt, which is $36.2 trillion and counting, minus the US national debt, the amount of debt that the government owes US taxpayers and US corporations, which is $15.05 trillion, and this is the number after the cost of the Domestic Debt Forgiveness Act, our settlement package between US taxpayers and US corporations and the federal government. which would then get you the new national debt level of $21.2 trillion. And this could be our new national debt after US taxpayers, US corporations settle or come to an agreement with the federal government and hash out the debt that is owed to them. One incentive that could be hashed out between US taxpayers to settle their portion of the national debt owed to them would be a cash out from Social Security and Medicare. And so for these age ranges, I have the different checks that are tax-free and non-debt collectible. So for age 12 to 24, there's a minimum payout of $25,000. From age 25 to 30, there's a minimum payout of $75,000. Age 31 to 48, there's a minimum payout of $150,000. And lastly, age 49 through 150, there's a minimum payout of $250,000. Once again, this one incentive would be tax-free and non-debt collectible. These payments for individuals are minimums. Check amounts will increase depending on the new tax system, tax rate, and the negotiation of the US national debt, domestically and internationally. Here at the bottom, to go along with this incentive, these one-time tax-free non-debt collectible checks will be a stipulation. The stipulation being, although these payments cannot be garnished, subjected to lawsuits and marital disputes, it will be required that if citizens have up to $5,000 to $10,000 in collections / outstanding debts, then said citizen will have to pay from their checks between $5,000 and $10,000 in debt. They would have to pay off $5,000 to $10,000 in debt from their one-time tax-free non-debt collectible checks. National debts. There's an estimated $315 trillion in debt around the world, but that's the estimated amount. We don't have the figures for what the true amount of debt or amount of money that is out there in the world currently. Ending this video with a few questions for you. How much money does each country owe one another? Does anyone know? Has anyone been keeping track?